Imagine you're hiking through a remote cave system in Greece. It's dark, it's damp, and as you explore, you stumble upon something incredible, something that could rewrite the entire story of human history. That's not the start of a movie. It's a real story. And it all begins with a pair of skulls found cemented high up in a cave wall, a discovery that would baffle scientists for decades. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most game-changing and controversial discoveries in paleoanthropology, the Apodema skulls. Get ready, because this story involves mystery, cutting-edge technology, and a revelation that sends shockwaves through our understanding of our own origins. So let's travel back to 1978. A team of researchers is exploring the Apodema cave, a stunning yet hard-to-reach cavern on the southern coast of Greece. Wedged in a block of rock, they find two fossilized skulls. They label them Apodema 1 and Apodema 2. At first glance, Apodema 2 looks familiar. Its features, like the prominent brow ridge, clearly point to it being a Neanderthal, our famous, robust ancient cousins who roamed Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. No big surprise there, but Apodema 1, well, that was a different story. It was more fragmentary, less complete, and its features were puzzling. For 40 years, these two skulls sat in a museum, largely enigmatic, their true secrets locked away in stone. The initial belief was that they were both Neanderthals, perhaps around 160,000 years old. A solid but not earth-shattering discovery. But science, as we know, never stops evolving. Enter the 21st century and a team led by paleoanthropologist Katerina Harvati. Armed with new technology, they decided to take another look. Using CT scanning and advanced 3D reconstruction techniques, they digitally pieced together the fragmented Apodema 1 skull. As the virtual model came to life on their screens, they must have felt a jolt of pure astonishment. The back of the skull was rounded, a feature distinctly characteristic of one species and one species only, Homo sapiens, our species. It completely lacked the classic Neanderthal, occipital bun, that distinctive bulge at the back of their heads. This was a modern human skull. Okay, so a modern human skull was found next to a Neanderthal skull. That's interesting, but not completely unheard of. But here's where the story takes a turn that could rewrite textbooks. The team needed to know how old these skulls were. Using a sophisticated dating method called uranium series analysis, they tested the rock that encased the fossils. The results for Apodema 2, the Neanderthal, came back at around 170,000 years old. This fit perfectly with our existing timeline of Neanderthals in Europe. But then came the bombshell. The analysis of the rock surrounding Apodema 1, the Homo sapiens skull, yielded an age of at least 210,000 years old. Let that sink in for a moment. 210,000 years old. To put that into perspective, the widely accepted timeline before this discovery was that the first major wave of Homo sapiens to leave Africa and successfully populate other continents happened around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago. Sure, there were some earlier hints of our species in places like Israel, dated to around 180,000 years ago, but those were still considered part of the Middle East, a stone's throw from Africa. Finding a modern human in southeastern Europe, in Greece, at 210,000 years old, is like finding a Roman coin in an undisturbed Native American settlement from the 5th-10th century. It's completely out of place and out of time. It makes Apodema 1 the oldest Homo sapiens fossil ever found in Europe, by a staggering margin of more than 150,000 years. This one discovery challenges everything. The traditional narrative was that Homo sapiens ventured out of Africa, encountered Neanderthals in Europe much later, and eventually replaced them. The Apodema skulls paint a far more complex and fascinating picture. It suggests that our ancestors were more adventurous and widespread, much earlier than we ever imagined. It wasn't just one big out-of-Africa event. Instead, it seems there were multiple waves of expansion. Some, like the one represented by Apodema 1, were perhaps smaller pioneering groups that ventured into new territories already occupied by other hominins like Neanderthals. So what happened to this early group of modern humans in Greece? Well, the fact that the slightly younger skull, Apodema 2, is a Neanderthal, gives us a clue. The story it tells is one of a failed colonization. A small population of Homo sapiens made it all the way to Greece 210,000 years ago, but they didn't last. They were eventually replaced or outcompeted by a resurgent Neanderthal population. It wasn't until 150,000 years later that our species would return to Europe to stay for good. This isn't a simple story of one species replacing another. It's a dynamic drama of migration, competition, and survival, playing out over millennia. These early modern humans were not the final victors of their time. They were just one group among many, trying to find their place in a harsh and challenging world. Of course, a claim this extraordinary requires extraordinary evidence, and the Apodema discovery hasn't been without its critics. Some scientists argue that the Apodema 1 fragment is too incomplete to be definitively identified as Homo sapiens. They suggest it could be an unusual Neanderthal, or perhaps another unknown type of human. Others question the dating methods, pointing out how complex it can be to date material from a cave environment where things can get moved around over thousands of years. The debate is fierce, and it's exactly this kind of rigorous scientific debate that pushes our knowledge forward. Researchers are now hoping to extract ancient DNA or proteins from the skulls. If they succeed, it could definitively settle the identity of Apodema 1 and give us an unprecedented look into the genetics of these early pioneers. Regardless of the ongoing debate, the Apodema skulls have already changed the conversation. They force us to think about human history not as a straight line but as a tangled, branching bush with many dead ends and surprising offshoots. They show us that the story of our species' journey across the globe was not a simple, triumphant march, but a series of trials and errors, of advances and retreats. It reminds us that 200,000 years ago, our place in the world was far from guaranteed. We were just one of several human species on the planet, and in some places like ancient Greece, we tried and failed before we finally succeeded. The Apodema skulls are a testament to the resilience of both our ancestors and the scientists who study them. A discovery made over 40 years ago has been given new life through technology, shattering our old assumptions and opening up incredible new questions. Who were these early European explorers? How far did they spread? What was their interaction with Neanderthals really like? The answers are still buried, waiting to be discovered in caves, in labs, and in the fiery debates of the scientific community. It is a powerful reminder that there is still so much we do not know about our own story. What do you think? Do the Apodema skulls represent a lost chapter of human history, or are we jumping to conclusions? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a fascinating puzzle, and every opinion adds another piece. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into our ancient past. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more stories from the frontiers of science, and ring that bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.